it never really hit me how sad my life was. Almost losing limbs due to my heroin addiction never fully computed. It's not that I didn't care. I just cared a whole hell of a lot more about getting high. Abscesses, infections, long-term hospital stays, doctor's visits, ER visits were all so normal in my junkie life. I was a junkie from age 23 to 40. In and out of jails, detoxes, hospitals, multiple overdoses. I have a 10+ page criminal record. I'm a felon. Most people do apartment tours, room tours, tattoo tours. Let's do a little junkie scar tour. I filmed this video already and I didn't like how it came out. So here we are again. Perfectionism is fucking real. This is my most recent, 2019. I decided to skin pop in my shoulder a shot of liquid Suboxone. I remember the second I did it, I knew something was wrong. I was in a public bathroom at some chicken joint in Cancun, just left the pharmacy, sick. I had caught a habit from chewing on Suboxone patches and shooting liquid Suboxone because I couldn't find dope anywhere. And I walked around with this infection for about a month before I had to go to the hospital. So many people were trying to get me to go to the doctor because I knew what was wrong. I knew what the problem was. But people who aren't used to seeing shit like that were terrified. My arm was huge. It was ginormous. I looked like a fucking Power Ranger walking around. All the way to the tips of my fingers was so fucking swollen. So swollen. It was scary. I wasn't scared though, because losing a limb never scared me. Just like every other time I almost lost a limb, no big deal. The gravity of the things that I've been through, the gravity of almost losing limbs due to my heroin addiction never fully computed. Like I never really grasped the severity of it. It's not that I didn't care. I just cared a whole hell of a lot more about getting high than I did about taking care of myself. Obviously, I'll insert some pictures. I can't show all of them because I'll probably get in trouble because they're super fucking gross. It looks like a shark bite. And sometimes I tell people it's a shark bite because it's a way cooler story. But once this infection started spreading throughout my body, my legs started becoming swollen and red, which is a sign of sepsis. That's when I started to get a little bit scared and I flew back to the States, went to the ER, and they told me I was very, very fucking close because it ate away most of my muscle tissue. You can see that. But it worked out for me though, because it looks just like a muscular arm. Like it just looks like muscle. So I guess it worked out. I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks, did 2 surgeries and a skin graft, which was nothing new to me because I had already had a skin graft years prior for my ankle infection, which is what I'm going to talk about now. In 2013, I think it was, I did some really bad dope that was going around Boston, and it was called crocodile, which had this flesh-eating bacteria in it. I did a shot in my ankle. I knew an infection was starting. I thought it was just another abscess. I mean, abscesses had become a normal thing in my life. I figured, sometimes I could treat them myself. Sometimes they would pop on their own. Sometimes I didn't have to go to the doctor. Because going to the doctor was never something I wanted to do. Usually going to the doctor meant I was definitely going to get admitted because I always waited so long. It's wild to me that I walked around like that. I was trying to treat it myself with like peroxide and neosporin, which obviously it just wasn't working. I could see that it was different than a regular abscess because it was an open wound. Usually abscesses aren't open wounds. This one, the skin was open. It was getting bigger, started to move up the back of my leg. There was rumors and gossip going around Boston about this bad dope that was going around. So I figured, you know what? I waited until I couldn't wait anymore and I just had to go to the hospital. I got to the hospital and I wait like 12 hours to get a freaking bed in the ER. And all of a sudden there's like a dozen residents and doctors in my little ER room taking pictures of my ankle. In that moment, I knew something was not right. Like something was majorly wrong. They tried to explain to me the gravity of the situation, but I really didn't care. The only thing I cared about was whether or not I was going to get sick, how I was going to stay in the hospital and, still get high, who was going to bring me dope, how was I going to, do another hospital stay and continue to get high, because that was the main reason why I hated going to the hospital, was because I would always have to have people bring me dope so that I didn't get sick. Because usually when you're a junkie, especially in Boston, in the system, it says that I'm a junkie. In the system, it has a history of what my procedures were, what my history is. So they already know that I'm a junkie. Usually means you cannot leave the hospital floor. When you get admitted and you're a known junkie, you're getting admitted. Like, you can't leave. They don't let you outside to smoke a cigarette because they know what you're doing out there. They knew I was going to cop. I quite literally live on the beach, and I don't get pedicures. Actually, you know what? Fun fact. I have never once had a pedicure in my entire life. Is that embarrassing? Is that embarrassing? I don't know. It's just that those things aren't important to me. Anyways, I digress. But it was so much bigger. Look at me doing gymnastics. Jesus. I couldn't walk the entire time I was at the hospital. I had to reteach my ankle how to move because they had to take so much skin from the front of my thigh as a skin graft and put it on top of my ankle so that it would heal properly, because it was a big open wound, and those wounds do not heal on their own. They need extra skin in order to close. Here is where they did the skin graft. They took skin from the front of my thigh and I had to apply it to my ankle. So I essentially had to reteach myself, my ankle, how to move and walk again because it was all new skin. And at the time that I was admitted, I had 4 other active abscesses on my legs and my feet at the same time that needed attention. I had one on the top of each foot. I had this situation right here, and then I also had one behind my knee right there. You know, looking back, they probably looked at me and was like, this poor girl. I mean, I never felt that way. Like, I never felt embarrassed. I guess that's a good thing. It never really hit me how sad my life was. It never really hit me. Like, here I was being admitted over and over and over and over again for surgeries and severe infections and life-threatening infections. Could have killed me, like very close to losing limbs. And it just never hit me. I was never embarrassed. These are just straight up track marks, and I still have this bruising that has yet to fade, and it's been 5+ years since I've used needles. These are all just severe track marks. Right here too. Right here, another abscess. Track marks. There's this one. I had this one, and one on this side. I came very close to losing my leg, actually. This one was huge and deep. This one was huge and deep. I had another one behind my other knee, which are very critical locations, especially behind the knee, because when the infection can get into the bone and, most importantly, into the joint. And if the infection gets into the joint, then essentially you're going to lose the limb at that joint, because they can scrape the bone, which they had to do with my ankle. The infection, the flesh-eating bacteria had gotten into the bone, and they had to do surgery and scrape the infection out of the bone. Luckily, it didn't get into the joint. So that's what they were worried about with this leg, because I had one behind here, and then this one was so deep. It was so big and so deep. And I had 2 very in close proximity to each other. So I had 3 total, and I was lucky. Looking back, obviously, I was so lucky because I almost lost this entire fucking leg. But again, never once did I think, hey, Ange, maybe you should stop doing this. Maybe this is a bad idea. You know, you're like coming incredibly close to losing limbs. It's like once I started getting abscesses, it's like the floodgates opened. It's like I kept getting them. I would have multiple on my body at once. I remember when I was waiting tables, I would show up to work and try to work because I would make cash. So I needed the cash. I'd be limping around with abscesses on my legs. I think my scarring and my infections were so bad because I wasn't showering. I didn't shower. I didn't wash my body. I never did laundry, which meant my clothes were dirty and my skin was dirty. And I know it's gross, but I mean, that's how I used to live. I also have permanent bruising on my arms. It really doesn't show up that well on camera, and I kind of think twice about showing it on camera. I don't know. I don't want to trigger anybody, but it's been more than 5 years. You can see it so much more clearly in like real life, but I have bruising still. I stopped using my arms when I ran out of veins in my arms, and I just strictly used like basically my lower body, my legs, my feet, under my feet, my hands, my fingers, my palms, my boobs, my stomach, my hips, even my elbow. If I could reach it, I was using the vein. I don't know if you can see it, but it's been more than 5 years and they're not going anywhere. They're not going. I get a lot of messages from people who also have scarring, and they ask me, how I cover it up or what I do, or, give me suggestions on what to use to fade them or whatever. Now, mind you, mine are incredibly severe with, holes and indentations and really bad track marks. We're not just talking like cosmetic on top of the skin. We're talking like dents in my skin. But I don't want to cover them up anymore. I used to for a long time. I used to wear pants to the beach. I never even owned a pair of shorts until the last several years. I literally only wore pants 100% of the time until I realized, you know what? Nobody's judging me. Yeah, sure, I get stares sometimes from strangers, but it's like, they're strangers. Who cares what they think of me? I realized that the only person that was actually judging me was myself. And once I started just wearing shorts and being unapologetically myself, nobody cared. Nobody asked me questions. A lot of people even say they don't even notice them. And they serve as great reminders of where I come from. I am seriously so fucking grateful that I don't have to worry about getting a new infection every single day. So please don't come at me with the whole, oh, but you don't understand. Nobody understands how bad my circumstances are. Nobody understands how bad my addiction is, or how bad my habit is, or how bad my story is. I get it. I understand. I am you. I was there. And I'm telling you that if I can do this recovery thing, coming from where I come from, then I promise you can too. Okay, that's all. Like and subscribe.